So Jackson Cantwell did not choose the Georgia Bulldogs, number one offensive tackle in the country out of Missouri. He committed to the University of Miami. And and that started the cascade of NIL talk, as it does every time anyone doesn't get a recruit, but it feels like it's specifically a storyline with Georgia. He was reportedly offered $2 million to sign. I don't know what that means. Is that a signing bonus, or is that $2 million over 4 years? How does that work?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what that means.
I don't know. You hear all kinds of rumors. Go
weird
ahead.
Reporting. Yeah, weird. Yeah, just weird reporting rumors, I guess.
Yeah, and that's why it sucks. Is like I don't even know what's true and what's just like being thrown out there.
Yeah, I don't doubt at all though that there were millions of dollars involved though. Like
for sure. Because I mean, it also benefits the agent to kind of lie about how much a guy's getting, because that makes him look better. So I don't know. I never know it's true, but I think I think we all know that Miami threw some money at Jackson Cantwell to get his services, and not like Georgia offered zero to get him, but obviously whatever Miami offered was more. And then you heard Kirby Smart's comments earlier this week about NIL. He said, quote, "I just want to be able to have a freshman come in and not make more than a senior. And I'd like for other sports to be able to survive. We're on the brink of probably 1 to 2 years away from a lot of schools cutting sports." And what are your first thoughts when you hear that quote from Kirby Smart?
Yeah, I don't disagree with the thought that we're a couple years away from like some sports just being cut entirely, because these NIL rules and the millions of dollars that players are getting like really only apply to football and basketball and in some cases baseball. And you obviously have a few gymnasts and a few baseball players and a few athletes in other sports earning a lot of NIL money, but for the most part all of this money really is going towards football. And like it just creates such an unequal ecosystem to where some of these sports just aren't going to get funding, it feels like, and they're just going to kind of collapse. That seems like kind of a byproduct of this NIL system. And it's just a weird thing. Like the idea that hopefully this, we hope this freshman doesn't make more than a senior. Like these are just problems that didn't exist at all even 5 years ago. So it's just like a weird thing to wrap your head around.
For sure.
Things just get weirder and weirder. Like the fact that Drew Rosenhaus is Jackson Cantwell's agent, one of the most ruthless, maybe the most ruthless sports agent out there. He is sticking his nose in college football now. It's just a weird situation to be in.
No, it definitely is. It's just such a weird time for the sport right now, especially because it's basically like you said, football and basketball, and then attractive females. Like that's pretty much who's getting NIL deals. It's like, hey, it's the free market, that's what happens. Or you got a Caitlin Clark or something, some outliers out there in other sports. Jackson Johnson chiming in here. Nice comment here by Jackson. Even though Miami got Cantwell, they will still find a way to lose to Georgia Tech.
Yeah, man.
Very possible. What are they, 2 years in a row have they lost to Georgia Tech? So we'll see.
Yeah.
I will say, just being the homer Georgia fan, like one of my first thoughts was I'd rather be Miami than Ohio State or Alabama or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not that Miami's not a contender, but I feel more confident. Like if Georgia's going to get to the national championship, they're going to have to go through an Alabama or an Ohio State. Maybe Miami's there.
It would be funny if they lost to Georgia Tech this year, specifically with Carson Beck after the game last year.
Oh yeah,
Carson Beck beats them.
He pulled it out though.
Like Carson Beck versus Georgia Tech would go down as like the greatest individual rivalry ever if they have another insane game next year.
Yeah, without a doubt. But do you think Georgia can survive like in the NIL era if they're not going to be consistently the toughest bidder? Because like to Kirby Smart's point, like the NFL, they address this with their rookie like with a rookie cap, after
Yeah,
Sam Bradford's huge contract. Like,
yeah, that
not like
was Sam
not like he was
Bradford.
the only one, but it was a process. Stafford definitely got some
Yeah,
serious money too.
yeah, that is funny. I always forget that Sam Bradford was the one who was like made the NFL be like, okay, wait, no, we need to have normal contracts for rookies. And that like
Like,
changed the league because now the whole thing in the NFL is like if you have a good quarterback on a rookie contract, that's your window to spend a bunch of money on the rest of your roster. But
yeah,
I digress. What was your question? Can Georgia like survive in the NIL era?
yeah.
Yeah. I think Georgia is probably one of the only programs that can, honestly. The NIL, like, I know the argument in favor of it has always been is, it'll even out some of the teams because you won't be able to make these, giant stacked 2019, 18 Alabama type rosters where there's just NFL starters at every position group and everything. Because now if you have that and guys like that aren't playing, they're just going to transfer. But um,
When you
Georgia, I
say
think
when you
is
say Georgia's one of the few, what do you mean by like they're one of the few that like won't be the highest bidder that can still play? Like, is that what you're?
I think they're one of the few that they will be the highest bidder. I think
Oh,
I think
really?
I think Georgia's one of the few programs that has the insane amount of resources to where if the current climate is now going to be the top players in high school are going to be asking for millions of dollars in NIL money. I think that phases out a lot of programs from being able to get prospects like that, but Georgia is not one of those programs who is being phased out. I
I
think
would
they're
have
probably one of
to. I
five
would
or
have to
six.
agree. Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying, I'd say they're one of, maybe this is too small a number, but I really do think they're one of like five or six that really doesn't need to be losing sleep over that.
Yeah, that's probably true. Like people talk about like Texas and Miami a lot when it comes to NIL and what Ohio State's roster cost last year. I just find it hard to believe that Georgia is not a big market team, for lack of a better
Yeah.
term. It's like the Atlanta Braves kind of, I mean, I guess they're not a small market team or anything, but you talk about like the Tampa Bay Rays or something. Like the Atlanta Braves are not the Tampa Bay Rays when it comes
Yeah.
to, they're much closer to being the Dodgers. Maybe they're not the Dodgers, maybe that's the number one spender in the league or
Mm-hmm.
a Mets or something going on right now. But it
Yeah. No.
seems like Georgia is going to be one of the heavyweights. And
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's just frustrating because it feels like you heard Steve Wiltfong say this multiple times throughout Jackson Cantwell's recruitment and Jared Curtis's recruitment for that matter. Like if this was an old school recruiting class, like Georgia gets both of these guys, probably gets Tyler Atkinson too. And it's like now when you kind of have a low key salary cap, like it kind of changes on which guys you're able to give those funds to. I think two things can be true here with this conversation. I think Georgia is very lucky to have won two national titles when they did, and now they might not have to pay top dollar to get those elite guys. And Kirby Smart's just like clearly like the number one head coach in college football. There's no Nick Saban out there anymore. Like he is number one on everyone's list basically across the board. So you have that, just infrastructure, I guess, for lack of a better word, like going into this NIL era. But I also think the other thing that can be true is if this NIL and portal era did not exist, Georgia would be the exact same program that Alabama was a decade ago. Like with just NFL players at first, second, and third string of every position, essentially. And you're just stacking elite recruiting classes on elite recruiting classes. Because let's not forget, like Nick Saban was obviously a great recruiter, but Kirby Smart is one of the recruiters that built those Bama dynasties. So, and then the fact that Nick Saban was 60 years old when he won his second national title in 2011. Kirby Smart was 46 when he won his second title at Georgia. And so just the longevity, I think that's where it's frustrating as a Georgia fan, is because you're like, this was supposed to be our time where we were building a dynasty. And now all of a sudden people care about parity and making things more even across the board. Well, this is our time.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's definitely like, and Georgia, literally, I think every other fan base on the planet except for Georgia is fine with that. But yeah, it
Yeah.
is unfortunate and kind of funny for Georgia that Yeah, right when it looked like they were about to overtake Alabama or not overtake Alabama, but just I guess succeed them as that next, just evil empire program. The portal era took off, which I don't think that's inherently a bad thing either. I think the fact that there aren't those juggernaut teams anymore is kind of one of the only good things about the new era of college football. Obviously, that leads to other problems because the byproduct of that is like these mid-major teams or just mid-level teams rather with like star-level players are the ones that just end up getting ransacked by the transfer portal, and those guys will transfer to an Ohio State. So it's a cycle, I guess. But like, yeah, that is it. That is funny that it did look like that for a while, that Georgia was going to become that next insane school, and who knows, like if is Nick Saban still coaching at Alabama if the transfer portal and NIL never got out of hand, because that was a huge thing leading up to his retirement in the first place. Like there's a lot of hypotheticals we could sit here and throw out if things were different, but we have what we have right now with the state of college football, man. It is what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And no one's losing any sleep for Georgia over here. They're little old Georgia. I don't think anyone's calling them that. Like little old Clemson. So yeah, they're still in as good of a position as anyone, in terms of what their prospects are to win the national championship basically every year, or just as a program for the foreseeable future. But man, it looked like Georgia was building just an insane dynasty. And look, they still haven't lost a home game since 2019. It's not like it feels like last year was such a down year. You lost 3 games, including the playoff game, but still in the SEC. I think the future is still very bright in Athens, of course.
Yeah, I mean, like with the resources they have, it's probably like they're going to be in the mix pretty much every year, barring just a complete program collapse. Like as long as Kirby Smart is the coach and they have as much money at their disposal as they do, they'll be fine.
But it does. I mean, it's not the same as Dabo Swinney's I'm not going to go to the portal because that's what I believe in. Like that was like so drastically hurting like the competition level of his team. Like he was actively like not making his team as good as he could possibly make them. I think it's not the same, but I feel like there is an extent of that. Like if Texas is throwing this to get star recruits and Georgia's not, I mean, at some point, it's like, do you have to ask the university? Like, you guys got so much money. I see the financial reports every year. You're right up there with everyone. Why is Georgia just not spending it like the other ones are?
Well, I don't know if I just don't know how much I agree with the idea that Georgia's like not spending that level of money, because like the number one quarterback in the country just committed there. It's not like they're being cheap, They had the number one player in the country commit there 2 years ago. I understand he ended up flipping, but it's like Georgia still pulls in elite classes, and like I don't know. I don't want to like. I think it's unfair to be like all of Georgia's recruiting successes right now in this era are because Kirby Smart is a great recruiter, but everything they haven't done because they don't want to spend money. Like I don't know if it's fair to say that. I think Georgia probably isn't like we'll probably never know how much anyone is spending on NIL right now, because the real answer is probably like we don't even want to know. But like I'd be willing to bet they're probably a little bit closer to like the Texases and LSUs of the world than maybe we want to admit.
That could be fair. Don't mess with my narrative over there, Bo. Elijah Griffin committed because he just loves the university and how they're going to develop him as a human being. Justice Terry is just all about the money. That's what it is.
That's right.
No, I think that's fair. And I think the other thing is like these money that the collectives are spending is not publicly disclosed or anything, right? So it's like that. I would love to see something like we've talked about before, like the NBA does, with you can get a supermax if that was the team who drafted you, kind of thing. Like encouraging people to stay where they are, If you could be like a second, third year player, now you can get X amount of dollars because you stayed at this university. You know what I mean? But yeah, the seniors could be making a lot from the collective, as far as I know.
Yeah, and we really have no idea about these collectives. Like when I was writing for the Red and Black, we tried to do like a story about Georgia's NIL collective, which I believe is called the Classic City Collective. And we tried so many different like open records requests, and we emailed so many different people, and we tried to contact so many people, and just nobody would talk because like those things are shrouded in mystery, man. Like they're just infinite money pits as far as I'm concerned, and we will never know what's in them. Like,
interesting. Yeah, and I think that's probably one of the bigger things Georgia's got going for him. Kirby's like, dude, we're not gonna do some kind of crazy bidding war to get you out of high school, but come here and you're going to make enough money. Like we're gonna hold you down.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a good enough pitch to get, maybe those how you get the kinds of guys who you want to build your roster with. And it's no shade on a guy like Jackson Cantwell for taking the money you can get. It's like, because I see this argument like, oh, you're going to take the $2 million now, but look at what the first offensive lineman, he's getting 20 million guaranteed. That's where the real money is. It's like, he could also make that money too. Like there's no, it's not mutually exclusive here.
Yeah. And also like, I don't blame anybody for taking the money that's in front of them. You don't want to, like, what if you think like that and then you get to camp and then you blow your knee out? You still have that $2 million.
Yeah. If you blow your knee out, or you're just not that good. Like,
or you're just not that good.
Mitch Hyatt was number one offensive lineman. What's that?
Which I'm sure Jackson Cantwell will be very good. But
yeah, I would assume he's going to be. But if he was a bust, he would not be the first 5-star who was a bust. And like Mitch Hyatt, North Gwinnett High School in the house. But he was number one offensive tackle. He had a great career at Clemson too, but wasn't even drafted after being a 5-star. I don't know why he wasn't drafted, but after being a 5-star number one offensive lineman, guy ends up not getting drafted. I'm sure he would have loved to have gotten a big payday as a freshman in college. They never got in the NFL.
Like the biggest like O-line flame out that I can remember in the NFL is Isaiah Wilson. That was bad. That was like his career went up in smoke, man. Like it was bizarre the way that all that went down.
Yeah, I still can't believe that. I mean, that guy was just great 2-year starter for Georgia, and then
for a while,
out of the league, Tennessee dropped him after the first year.
They cut him after his rookie year, I think, and he like didn't play again.
Yeah, that's crazy, and that's one thing that worries me about Lewis Cine a little bit. Not suggesting anything about Lewis Cine off the field, but you don't see teams cut first-round picks after 1 or 2 seasons very often.
But at the very least, I mean, Lewis Cine though, like he got his way back in the league and he got a Super Bowl ring.
Yeah, he got a Super Bowl ring. Yeah, like
he was on the team when they won.
Like LaShawn McCoy got that Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl ring.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome. I'm glad that Shady got
a ring. No shade to Shady.
Lewis Cine is another one who is hanging on for dear life in the league right now for sure. But he got a ring.
Well, without a doubt. Shout out to all the Eagles. I don't know. I go back and forth. We've talked about like I was a Lions fan for. I was thinking more and more about that. Our conversation of my first NFL game I ever saw was the Falcons versus the Eagles with Herschel Walker. Maybe I should just be an Eagles fan. All the other Georgia fans are doing it.
Just don't be a Packers fan.
The thing that held me back, honestly, was the Philadelphia Phillies. I can't root for I can't root for the same team as those people. I can't do it. I can't do it.
Phillies. I couldn't do it either.
All right. Anything else about the NIL stuff before we move on?
I don't think so, man. It just gets kind of depressing to talk about after a while.
For sure. And we should be depressed. Georgia's got a big time class, just signed the number 1 quarterback. We were just hoping this was the avalanche that was going to lead to maybe the number 1 overall class. But maybe you can get Tyler Atkinson. He seems like he's going to be a tough one to get. he's one of these guys who feels like an NFL player, like right now, honestly, the way people talk about Tyler Atkinson. But yeah, Georgia, I'm sure, is still going to sign a top 5. Kirby Smart, I wouldn't bet against top 3 because that's what it usually is. But yeah, I think we're going to end up with a good class here.